Within the last decade, the area of early childhood education has had an increased interest from administrators and politicians alike. In many Western countries, reforms are being launched aiming at the improvement or the optimization of this area. A reference to globalization is often being made in relation to the relevance or the necessity of these reforms. Due to globalization, it is argued, nations have to optimize their human capital, and as such, curriculum has to meet new demands. In my paper, taking a Danish reform of educational plans in early childhood education as my starting point, I analyze globalization, not as a process outside of education, but as a kind of truth-telling that comes to produce child nature in particular ways. In the Danish case, a fully developed child is produced as a realization of an inner entrepreneurial self who's able to make progress out of the so-called dreams and potentials that she or he is said to have. As such, globalization is internal to education as it comes to define how to think of what a preschool child is. I analyze globalization as a truth-telling embedded in, but also carried forth by comparative practices such as PISA. Now, these international surveys provide a rationalized and quantified scheme of what is perceived and acted on as evidence. Evidence of what works and who is ahead in what is naturalized as a global knowledge economy. However, looking historically at the field of comparative education, the field embeds certain ideas of civilization, modernization, and progress that are just assumed and never really questioned. And they're still there. They're just transformed. In the early 20th century, comparing educational system was about establishing and improving your own national system as a way of modernizing the nation. To compare was to reflect yourself in the light of others and become wiser in terms of who you were as a civilized nation, what was understood as the spirit, the history, and the culture of a nation. Today, comparison is not about explaining or understanding history and culture. Comparison is made to mirror your position in a global economic race. However, the very idea that educational results in terms of reading skills or mathematical performance are equivalent to the strength of the nation relies on the very idea that the progress of the nation can be studied in terms of the progress of the child. That to be a civilized or superior nation is to be distinct in terms of educational outcome. So by analyzing the field of comparative education and the transformed ideas that goes into the truth-telling of globalization, it becomes possible to understand, but also to critically question the reform launched in the area of early childhood education, the assumptions on which they rely, and the way they produce certain ideas of what a child is.